We're live. Welcome to another episode of Scoutcast. My name is Rolf Zuurt and I'm your host. There are two kinds of work. One is to work in the system. You are a cog in a machine, which is necessary, of course, but by itself, not enough to sustain organization in this ever-changing world. To make organizations fit for the present and the future, we must also work the system. In addition, many organizations opt to use a command and control style management, where upper management makes all the decisions for the employees. While a lot of organizations choose this as their way of decision making, it is usually making many people dissatisfied and ultimately maybe leave the company. And to help us work the system and break these chains of command, we have Niels Pflaeging on the show today. Niels is something of a rare animal. In his client work, he combines several roles. On one hand, he offers inspirational, thought-provoking, highly conceptual and entertaining impulses as a world-class speaker. On the other hand, he helps organizations internationally with triggering, mapping, and leading profound and robust change initiatives as a highly effective advisor to organizations of all kinds. On his website, he is described as, among others, a management exorcist. So I'm curious to see what that precisely entails. So welcome, Niels, on the show.
Thanks for inviting me, guys.
Yeah.
It's good to be on a podcast just among men, no women here, right? Female listeners, are they allowed? Female listeners, can they listen to the podcast without their ears exploding? Yes.
I hope so.
To balance things out, we have a Women in Tech podcast. I think we already have one of these episodes, right?
So no, it's coming up beginning of July.
Okay. Yeah. So we can be very masculine here today, and then the Women in Tech episode will balance it out.
If you want to join that one, Niels,
I will try to bring in the feminist point of view in this show. Okay. I promise.
And speaking of femininity, we also have Henk on the show today. Welcome.
Thanks.
How's it going?
Pretty good. I brought my feminine side today. I was going to make a very bad joke, but I regret. I'm not going to go there.
Sure. And of course, Panche Garciovsky is on the show today as well. Welcome, Panche.
Thanks, Rolf. Nice. Glad to be here. Looking forward to today's conversations.
Yeah. So Niels, I already said it in the interview, but what do you do to exorcise managers? So, do you exorcise them from companies, or do you exorcise the demons within?
Yes, the demons need to be exorcised. That's the idea of exorcism, always.
Okay.
The idea of corporate exorcism or management exorcism is that managers are not the problem, organizations are not the problem, but there's something in us that perpetuates command and control. You mentioned that in the intro.
Yeah.
Command and control, it comes from somewhere, and the somewhat twinking, ironic idea here is that nobody wants command and control. Nobody wants this kind of bullshit pyramid organizations. Mm-hmm. Still, we have them, so there must be some devil inside, right? There's a great song, The Devil Inside, by In Excessor, an Australian rock band. There's a devil inside corporations and, of course, in our heads and hearts. There must be something, an evil spirit, and it needs to be driven out. So my job is about doing that, even if there is pea soup on every wall. Have you seen the movie, The Exorcist?
Yeah.
I have. It's about this girl, 13, 14 years, was possessed by the devil, exactly. And when the devil is driven out, the demon in the girl spits out something, and they used for filming these scenes, they used pea soup.
Yeah, nice green stuff.
Sometimes when I work, there's pea soup everywhere during my talks and workshops. But it's a friendly environment. It's not. Of course, this is about changing beliefs, changing faiths. Driving in democracy, driving out the anti-democratic spirit of command and control, and of course, this is the exorcism idea. It's just a little notion.
Yeah. If I might interlude here, in your perception or in your best of abilities, where does this desire for a command and control originate? Where does it come from?
Yeah, what's the devil inside? I do not believe that managers want or desire. You talked of desire, right? Mm-hmm. That's the opposite of what I believe.
Oh, correct.
I believe that managers have no desire, but they are possessed by certain ideas that make it inevitably that command and control or top-down control, or let's say fascist notions of managing and leading manifest themselves in the organization. I'll give you an example. if you are possessed by the belief that people must be motivated extrinsically, then you need bonus and incentive systems. You need to drive your people's behavior, for example, salespeople's behavior. And then you will inevitably produce greed in your organization and division and loneliness and lostness and organized helplessness. Yeah. So your belief that people must be motivated, it sounds harmless enough, right? But that's the devil inside. Our lack of confidence in people's ability to self-organize, to be motivated at work, to bring their motivation to work voluntarily. So the devil inside is our ideas and our assumptions about human nature. Or let's put it like this, the secret sauce to creating much, much better organizations like Toyota, Handelsbank, and Burzorg, companies that I often mention in my work. The crucial difference, the secret sauce, is unshakable belief and faith in people's intrinsic motivation. Yeah. What Douglas MacGregor 60 years ago called Theory Y.
Theory Y, yeah. And
does that make sense to you guys or not?
Yeah, for me that makes
definitely
sense. And I think it's
that's where it all starts. Yeah, performance systems, the way you structure your organization, the way you will structure, departmentalize or not, decentralize or not. All that depends on our assumptions about human nature, and I've been working on that for 17 years now.
But
helping
humans
to overcome this centralization drive, to drive out Theory X mindset, you know.
But aren't humans also looking for, confirmation that they're actually, doing the right thing? I mean, it's about being accepted in the group, about being accepted in society. So also in your work, sometimes you're looking for confirmation that you're actually doing a good job. So should always the motivation be intrinsic, or is it okay to also sometimes get like a pat on the back from someone else to say like, hey, good job, here's a little extra, I'm happy with your work?
If you don't mind, I will treat you just like one of my clients, okay?
Please. Yep.
So I will ask back.
Yep.
Okay, let's imagine that there are two churches, two belief systems around whom to get the confirmation from. Two belief systems.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's assume we all want confirmation. We are all guys and we have lots of masculine hormones and we are young and driven. We want confirmation. From whom? There are two churches. Whom do we want confirmation from?
The one that is paying my salary, I guess.
Excellent answer. Excellent answer. Now the question is, who pays your salary? HR or the client?
Wow, right now, if I look from the point of view of, let's say, a lot of also our customers, yes, HR is paying your salary.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
Right? That's where the ghost, that's the evil spirit, the evil ghost. Yeah. That lets us think, our beliefs, our flawed beliefs tell us, my boss is who pays my salary, or HR, or the CEO, and not the customer who buys our product as a company. And I contribute to the, right?
Yeah, so I think that's connected to the fact that, at least in my head, let's say, at least if I look when I started as a developer and I joined a company, you are so far away from, let's say, the problem or the customer that you then, and I guess that's your point, right? Like you get embedded in the system that you basically lose the focus of why I'm doing here. And then suddenly everything is translated to, wow, he pays my salary, I have to do those tasks, but people are telling me what to do, and you kind of get a bit numb. At least that's how I felt.
Yes, that sounds like a description of that movie by Charlie Chaplin, Modern Times, about the loneliness of the Tayloristic worker, and the sense meaninglessness of work that we feel in command and control systems, and where we are removed from what this is for, right? And software development, sometimes I like to say it's like the modern mining. 100 years ago, many people worked in mines, coal mines and so on. And now the same people basically work in software development, and most of them don't have a clue, at least in Waterfall and in most Scrum.
Yeah, and also in some Agile is the same. They don't.
And this leads me to another thing that yesterday I discussed with some other people in a work session. Scrum, I think, hasn't fixed the problem, right? Scrum or Agile, we are still stuck in command and control. okay, now we are not doing waterfall in terms of how we organize our time and coordinate the work, but we still seem to work for the product owners or bosses still. Nothing has changed, right?
Well, that's the key word that you said there, doing, right? You can do Agile, you can do the rituals, but Agile is all about being Agile, being in the right mindset. So, if you're just implement a few Agile methodologies or Scrum rituals, that doesn't make you Agile.
But what I meant was Scrum, ideally, a Scrum team would also sell its services, its features, the features it develops, or the minimum viable product, or however you want to call them. It would sell them to some external customer and get money back. And this financial side of software development, Scrum has completely missed it from the start. It wasn't a problem. It wasn't a problem just Sutherland and the others wanted to solve at the beginning, I suppose. Right?
No.
But now, 20 years later, still we are not talking about the economics of the Scrum team.
No.
Because if you are a Scrum team, you have to pay your own salary somewhere. I mean, the client has to pay them. So you must sell your products, large products, small products, different prices maybe. But, that's why you should do guessing, about how big is a feature, how much time will it take, so that you can price it, sell it to a client, and then the client pays the Scrum team. But that hasn't changed at all. Scrum teams still very much are sucking on corporate finance resources and seem to be, it all follows a budget logic. And so we haven't overcome the most pressing problems of how to organize.
Because Scrum and Agile is just, it's a tool, and we're essentially still primates, and they were driven by some deeper inner, maybe fears that we fall back into that command and control pattern. So that's really difficult to break.
And that is visible when you look at all the scaling frameworks. They're all very much about command and control. I've come to the conclusion that even less.
So we mentioned already briefly command and control, and I'm quite new in this whole domain, so I have quite a lot of questions on it. Like, can we define what command and control is and what is it actually not? What is command and control and what is it not? So why I'm asking this, like we followed the Open Spaces beta session from you a couple of days ago. It was really, really interesting, really great. So one thing that made me think there that I kind of, is this a command? Is you have the role of the sponsor within the organization where you want to implement the Open Spaces beta, for instance. It's a person that has some sort of I don't know if mandate is the right word, but influence within the organization to gather people and to bring them together through an invitation. And it's generally a desire that this person has, or maybe multiple people. But could that be considered a command?
No. Well, we all have desires, right?
Yeah.
That is not the problem. And the CEO of a company also has desires or wishes or things that she or he wants and really, really wants. That cannot be the problem. To have a will cannot be the problem.
Correct.
The problem is what you do with your will. And there are two options. If you ask me, Rolf already asked something similar in a way. These questions about what is the leadership that we want, what is the leadership that we don't want, what is the organizational structure that we want and don't want. It's always important to compare the two schools, the two options that we have. Command and control is one. I call it sometimes the pyramid, and the other I call it beta or the peach or decentralization. There are different ways to call it. Or we can call the pyramid and command and control management, and the other we can call it leadership. Different ways to call it, but I prefer alpha for command and control and beta for radically self-organized and decentralized. Yeah. And if you ask me what the essence of command and control is, and you ask me about how would decisions be made inside organizations, and if a CEO has a strong desire, or feels passionately about a certain problem and wants it changed, there are two ways to act. The command and control way is coercion, or commanding, or force, driving in fear. Facts, force, fear is a Alan Deutschmann who wrote a great book, Change or Die. He calls the usual patterns facts, force, fear. Coercion. You force people to do it. Usually we call that change management, right? When we want to change something and we use facts, force, and fear or coercion.
You are going to bring another discussion.
We're just going to go into we're mentioning so many terms that I have we can go so many directions here. But okay.
Yeah, but that's
finish your story. Sorry.
that's the thing. You invited me, and I bring theory to the room.
Yeah.
I look at let's look at these things conceptually. So we bring all kinds of aspects and facets to the thing. But here's the thing: once you start to divide between command and control, you drive things through facts, force, and fear, or coercion, or you force or bribe people, that kind of stuff. You simply command them. The alternative, you already mentioned it, is invitation. And invitation, you recognize it by the fact that people have the option to say no without being punished or condemned or bribed or forced anymore. So the problem is not that the CEO wants something. The question is, does that person opt for coercion or for invitation? Yeah. And these distinctions, they are the key. We also need theory, I think, to debate that.
Yeah, it's also, well, that's where we're also thinking similarly to this. But then it's a bit more complex in practice. So let's say a CEO wants to implement something, and they have an idea and they want to pitch it or sell it to the organization.
Just a second. When you say implement, to me, that is already the language of command and control.
A decision has been already made, right?
Yeah, you can implement a software on a server because the software is dead and the server is dead. You can implement. But in social systems, to implement something means I will force you. I've got the decision made. I will command it to be done. Execute, implement, get into the boat, all these, or break down, or drive in, put through. This is a language of First World War, World War I, World War II, and command and control and fascism. Yeah, we don't want that. So we don't want to implement. But if I invite people to join something that I have authority, right? I have an authority to change the system, for example. The CEO might say that. Yeah. It is my authority to want that, a better organization.
Yeah.
I invite you to join, but if you don't join, all right, there's no punishment. You can say yes, that's great. And you can say, no, that's also good.
But how does that work? Let's say, then you say, as a company, you have 100 people, and then you say, guys, I heard there is new way of doing things, and I would love to see if we can work this out. I would like to invite you, and everybody's quite comfortable, doing fine, and they just say, dude, I don't want. And then suddenly nobody joins your initiative, and then it just dies? Or what happens if 50% join and the other 50 don't? I'm pretty sure this is a normal, probably expected question.
Yes, and it says more about you than about the topic at hand. That's the devil inside.
Yeah.
The devil inside is, do I confide that almost everybody will want this shit?
Yeah.
If it's something serious, because it might be some bogus that the CEO is suggesting.
Yeah.
By the way, there's one of the heroes in this game is Ricardo Semler of Semco. Not sure if you have heard of him. And he tells this story about Semco where he had some great suggestion, great proposal, invited everybody to come, and nobody showed up.
Okay.
So he knew that the problem was his, or the topic wasn't interesting enough, or whatever. But that's a way of voting. But the other thing is, if you are really convinced of something that is great and important, you must also explain it, of course. You should invite, but also inform people what is meant by it. And you must give people a chance to say no and to inform themselves before that.
I think it's fair.
Okay. Right? And you must believe that, I believe that this is good, and most people will join it if they can. Some may take another stance. Okay. Right. By the way, if we're talking about work the system, our topic is to work the system, right?
Correct. Yeah.
How many people do you? What kind of percentage do you think? If the CEO, let's imagine a CEO in this world invites everybody, and only 50% say yes and come to the open space meeting where it is discussed to then work the system for 90 days. That's what open space beta is about. Do you think 50% of people is enough?
Well, enough for what?
Exactly.
To work the system?
To work the system.
Well, one person is enough to work the system.
Exactly. 50% is enough. For example, if the 50% say we will abolish budgeting and the shitty bonus system that drives everybody mad, and the stupid individual targets and the performance appraisal, we will decentralize decision making to teams in the periphery. Of course, the 50% who do not join will have to make up their mind. Okay, how do we if those other 50%, if they work the system in that sense, how will I position myself? You would have to think about that, right?
Well, but
also some form of coercion,
or will I go away, or will I go with it? All that is okay.
But isn't that also one form of coercion? Like 50% of the company is doing it. I better get with the program or leave. Like that kind of feels like coercion as well.
Where do you live, Rolf? In the Netherlands, right?
In the Netherlands, yeah.
Is the democracy in the Netherlands a coercion? Or when a law is changed, is that a coercion?
It feels like that sometimes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, we have to talk about democracy.
Well, I mean, we can talk about politics. We can talk about politics a lot, right? But like, I vote for a party, and then they promise me one thing, and then in the end, they have to make a collaboration with 4 or 5 parties, and then laws get approved that I personally don't approve of. So it's like, I didn't vote for this. So then it feels like coercion. But yeah, of course, like if you want to talk about democracy, then the majority vote counts.
Yeah, no. That's not precisely true, by the way. But representative democracy has this. It sometimes sucks, of course.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: when we talk about organizations and organizational development and working the system together, that means the more you are passionate about it, the more you will try to be an active part of doing this work.
Yeah,
it's quite exciting. Can be quite exciting. Of course, if you want to change the system in an organization, the business must continue as well, right? During those 90 days of transforming an organization with Open Space Beta, the business must continue. Otherwise, the company will die.
Yeah.
So not everybody can work the system full time. You have to arrange how to do that, who will do what, and of course, it's like in democracy. I think when you work the system, there might also be disappointments. For example, when I sometimes work with clients. The first reaction is, we will have this cell structure with small teams in the periphery and lots of autonomy. And I always wanted to work with this other guy or other girl, Claudia or Stephen or whatever. And they are my best friends. And this new structure, it doesn't mean that I will be on one team with them. Oh my God, now I'm very disappointed and a little bit sad and a little bit angry. This kind of disappointment also has. Self-organization and effective organization, decentralization is not about working with your best buddy in a team.
No. Yeah. It can happen.
Working within constellation that get the work done better, where you can be more autonomous, have more fun, have more entrepreneurial spirit. It doesn't mean, that buddies stick together all the time and sit in the same corner all the time. That would be kindergarten. It's a different thing. Those disappointments happen in my work. I see that happening sometimes, and it must be clarified. So there is a price to self-organization, decentralization as well, and sometimes.
So what would that price be? Let's say, on your point of view, like what would you consider, let's say, negative to it, if it's the right word?
Yeah, no, it's not the right word. I always think that there is a price. No, it's not. Is it negative? I'm not sure. I like the expression. There's a price to it.
Yeah. Okay.
And you might perceive it as negative, but
exactly, or expensive.
Every decision that you make has a price.
Well,
you want to marry? That has a price usually. A price to it. Or you want to move together.
You want to divorce? There is a price to it too.
Exactly. Even liberty by divorce has a price attached to it. Exactly.
But also, not changing, not doing anything has a price to it.
Yes. Exactly. The highest price of all.
Yeah. So what we agree is actually inspiring and stimulating change. We will not consider command. It's the way you execute that, or execute again wrong term. Pardon me for that. The way you go through this process of change is what determines whether it's a command or control. All right.
Yes, the right. What in the we are implicitly talking about our transformation approach, Open Space Beta here, which was derived of Open Space Agility.
Correct.
Was developed by Daniel Mazik. So there's a history around it, but just to detail this a little more. In traditional change management, a small group of people makes the decision of what to do, how, and when. In Open Space Beta, or in what I call contemporary organizational development, based on democratic and beta and self-organization principles. Let's say an agile way of developing an organization. There you cannot have coercion, because you cannot produce a decentralized, agile, self-organized system with the means of coercion and forcing, bribing, facts, force, fear. You cannot produce democracy with fascist methods, so to speak. Which is why SAFe cannot produce any agility. Do you get my point?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's about like...
I'm not sure why I said that, but...
No, but
did you listen to our podcast about SAFe, maybe?
It is impossible to produce the good thing through a bad thing.
Yeah.
And everybody who contradicts that notion, I think, is just a selfish businessman. Right?
That's an interesting statement. I'm wondering.
Or maybe they just don't know, right? Like they have a different belief, or like they don't see... Because I think a lot of, for example, because now we deviate a bit, but from the SAFe discussions, they always say like, wow, used to be worse, now it's a little bit better. And I think it compares... Well, that's what they say. I don't know if it is, but they say they have better results and they have better output, not per se outcomes. And so that's their argument. That is like, okay, if you do one step in the right direction, is it wrong?
Yeah, that's the question.
Is that a serious question to me?
No. It's just but sure, you can answer it.
Improving command and control is perpetuating evil. Now, let me put it like this. 99% of what we call Agile or Scrum or Kanban or whatever is obviously executed and implemented and done by command and control, by coercion. So it is evil. It is wrong. It will never work. The improvements are temporary at best, tiny, feeble. And I'm not trying to criticize any agilists here. I just think we have failed, or you have failed. We have failed to bring the right transformation method to the table. Yep. And this is the same mess that happened with the lean movement, the quality movement decades before. They all failed. We failed at the time. I will include myself here. We failed to bring the right change or transformation approach, or organizational development approach to the table. Mm-hmm. And it is not enough to say Scrum works the way it's written in the Scrum Guide. The question is also, how do you bring it about? And at the pilot stage, it's usually done well. You say, okay, let's see who voluntarily volunteers, who are the volunteers for doing some Scrum. Yeah. And then you have a pilot. That's fine. But then in the next level, you say, okay, now we want everybody to do it. Yeah. And we coerce people into doing it. Yeah. And the problem is not Scrum. The problem is your implementation method, which is just fascist crap. Yeah. Right? And I'm not blaming people here.
I agree with you.
Well, but why not people? Like, because people are doing it.
So I lost you guys here.
We need open space agility or open space beta, this kind of approach that is fully 100% invitation based. Right. To make better organizations happen. Period, full stop. The problem is not Scrum. The problem is not that Scrum works or doesn't work, or is Kanban a little better, or here and there. I think those are things that teams should decide. What approach to use, how to refine it, how to evolve it. But the real problem is we are implementing it in a command and control way, and that will never create what we really want. Also, by the way, with Scrum, we cannot transform entire organizations, which is why we need something like Scrum Plus, and that exists. It's called Beta. BetaCodex.org, you can look. Our listeners.
Yes.
Go ahead, Rolf.
Oh yeah, so you mentioned Ricardo Semler just a few minutes ago, and our boss, who is non-coercive at all, he considers Ricardo Semler a personal hero of himself. So he actually sent in a question for you. Allow me to play it back here, see if this works.
So my question will be that on the BetaCodex side, I found a couple of inspirational videos. One of them from one of my personal heroes, Ricardo Semler, and in it he expresses that you probably won't be able to change existing companies because of, the system. Managers are used to a system. They've been trained to work in a certain way. And you, apparently from your most recent speech as well, you disagree fully with that. Is that right? And if so, how do you identify the companies or management that actually want to change?
Yeah, that was just so brilliant. Thank you for recording this and for bringing in this question. That's fantastic. Yeah. And your colleague is totally right. What's his name again? Your boss?
Sylvester.
Sylvester is totally right. Ricardo Semler says these things, and he has good and bad reasons to say it like that, because I think he was disappointed by his own experience. Which is that he in the 1980s he started talking about organizational democracy, decentralization, as we call it, and so on. And nobody ever did it.
Apart from him.
And he kept talking about it, about Semco and what they did and how great it was. And all that is good and well, but nobody did it. And the problem is, Ricardo, as many others who talk about great cases, like the Spotify case and so on, they always forget to provide I almost said implementation approach, a transformation approach, an approach to organizational to bring about the organizational renaissance or change or transformation, or we call it a rite of passage. You need a rite of passage for the whole organization.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, you will never bring about transformation in other organizations. At Semco, it happened because Ricardo, quite a genius, also a hero of mine, he did many things right. Yeah.
So I think also
but to make that happen in other companies, you need this transformation approach. I'm recording so. So without the transformation approach, it will seem to you that nobody wants the change, and that is like just a mirage. Yep. It's an illusion, a very frustrating one.
So in I think it's your latest book, the essays on Beta Volume 1. It's like you talk about why can we never learn anything from the great examples. I think this also falls in that line. And you also talk something about like the smart collective and the individual smarts and the collective stupidity trap. When people try to find excuses, or that's why it worked there, that's why it's not going to work here. It feels like it's about relating to like sort of the fundamental attribution error in generally in humanity. That's like what it's based in. Is that the right way of perceiving it?
Yeah, totally.
And
because managers in command and control systems, they behave as if they were tyrants and fools and selfish, greedy bastards and so on, but it's just the logic of commands and control systems to behave like that, right?
Yeah, so they don't have the
within
intentions.
The logic of current organizations, of course, most executives behave as if they were tyrants, yeah? But it's not that they are possessed by the devil of their organizational model, so to say. And to drive that out, we need to change beliefs and work the system. That's exactly. And the attribution error is that, of course, the organization doesn't behave, only those people behave, right?
Like, do you remember yourself, the moment that you came into this realization? Because I can imagine that you probably also worked at some point in a command and control organization, and do you remember like the day that you're like, damn, this is wrong?
Yeah, it was a shameful period of my life. Because I was a finance manager, a controller, financial controller. Do you know what they do?
Those are the worst.
Reporting.
Did you get bonuses?
When I recognized that this movement existed beyond budgeting, as it was called, and as it is, you might still call it like that, when I realized that there was this research around beyond budgeting already existing, talking of organizations like Handelsbanken, the Swedish bank that didn't have any budgeting, no plan actuals reporting, no incentive systems, no bonus systems, only 3 hierarchical layers. When I realized that this was real, and I doubted it for a long time, I felt pretty foolish, because I was an instrument of command and control, of course.
Yeah.
My work was instrumental. And also, when I think back today of the kind of questions I molested business people with in the organization, and it's okay, but okay. The problem is not that the fool doesn't recognize that he is a fool.
Yeah.
So once you recognize it, you either change, and I opted for doing something different and promoting something different.
But
I try to repent.
Is that the reason also why? I think you talked briefly when we talked about Semco. Like there need to be certain underlying conditions as a prerequisite for a certain change or transformation to happen within an organization, because maybe more people need to be aware of this, of the problem they're facing, or.
And the awareness is the key problem, I think. Building the awareness. For example, if you look at Scrum, it's not so difficult.
No.
And I doubt that the Scrum certifications create the awareness.
You doubt? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I think the much better approach is to work the system and create the awareness while doing it, and why while experiencing Scrum and so on. Some things they cannot be trained well. And, democracy, for example.
And do you maybe have an example, because we're talking about command and control, and that it's bad, and that it's devils inside of people, but it kind of works for a lot of organization. Like, what is actually like wrong with it? Like, is it really that bad? Because if it is that bad, why is everyone still doing it? Is it just the human nature about wanting to have leaders or something? Because what's actually a negative point about the whole command and control? Like, is it destroying your company?
Yes.
And in what way? How does it manifest itself?
In all ways. I'm not sure how to help you fathom that. I always argue that there are no successful command and control organizations. Some may earn money.
Yeah.
Some may have the biggest market share, but they are not successful. Successful is an all-around thing, as we like to say. In the BetaCodex, we talk of all-around success instead of mono.
Yeah.
Dimensional.
Monodimensional success. Yeah. For example, let's take a famous example. Toyota is a great beta organization, really great. It has been doing it for six decades or so. Mm-hmm. I live in Germany. I'm in German. So Volkswagen might be a car company from our country that is very command and control. Sadly, I very much think that should be changed. And it would only take a couple of months. But currently, there's not enough will and wanting there. But let's just compare those two organizations. Toyota is a beta organization. Volkswagen is an alpha organization.
Yeah.
And some people would say, well, Volkswagen is pretty successful, right? They're selling cars.
Yeah.
And I always reply, that's the only thing they're doing.
And what is Toyota doing in addition? Is it hybrid cars or?
Now you're talking about technologies?
No, but like you're saying, like, okay, Volkswagen is just selling cars. So I was wondering, like, what is, because Toyota is also selling cars, but is Toyota also in other fields as well?
No. Let's assume both are car companies.
Yeah.
Fundamentally. They all have other businesses, but let's say they are car companies. Simplify it a little bit.
Yeah.
They both sell cars.
Yeah.
And they are probably number one and number two in the world. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure who's number one or number two. So both sell cars.
Yeah.
Supposedly, Volkswagen even makes a profit, at least occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah? And they do things so that they occasionally have a profit.
Yeah.
All kinds of things, by the way.
Fake tests also, I heard.
Exactly, which includes exactly all these things that we read about in the media. All kinds of activity. And I don't want to talk badly or badmouth a great company, a big company here from Germany, but
yeah, you still need them as a customer.
All kinds of things,
right? So
all kinds of things, including, of course, influencing, lobbying politics so that imports to Germany of foreign cars are crippled, hindered. There's all kinds of things. And legitimate. Some things are lawful. Not all things are unlawful. But here's the thing: success is not a question of sales volume, not even of profit. It is also of customer satisfaction, satisfaction of society, shareholder return is very important. And without doubt, Toyota produces massively more shareholder return than Volkswagen. I would also say that from a business model perspective, Toyota is a much better company because every car they sell is profitable, which at Volkswagen is not the case at all.
Okay.
So there are thousands. And of course, Toyota is much more innovative, more everything.
Yeah.
More everything. Size doesn't matter. Ricardo Semler also said that beautifully always. Size doesn't matter. Nothing grows limitlessly. So size is really, it's really a ridiculous information to judge a company. Toyota is on everything, or a bank like Handelsbanken, they are on everything more successful than Deutsche Bank. Not just profitability. That's one thing which is not unimportant. What do you think? Do you think it's the same? They're selling cars and they are all successful? I don't think so.
No, but I think if you are outside and you are not looking from the organization point of view, and if you are just, let's say, I just see the news, I see the amount of cars on the street, that's what you judge, right? And you just say like, I think so.
No. In a democracy, we look at all kinds of things. Do they pay taxes?
What I mean is, like,
do they pay well? Do they pay good salaries? Do they protect the environment? I mean, they're both car companies, right?
Yeah.
Do they protect the environment as best as they can? Do they develop the right technologies for the future to make transportation and mobility more achievable and also more environmental friendly? All these things, we take them into account. Don't tell me that you don't. Of course we do. I sometimes wonder how anybody can buy a Volkswagen car. Really, I don't understand it. I would never buy it. I couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I can, because I think a lot of people don't care.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck, as they say.
Yeah,
in the United
exactly. They
States.
don't give a fuck. That's the right word for it. But I understand what you're saying, and I agree with it. But I also sometimes struggle with the thought of, like, I mean, we see all those documentaries about everything, right? It can be about veganism, it can be about anything. In the end, I also, like, sometimes don't care about some of those causes. But if we go back a little bit, because I have an interesting thing, because I saw one of your tweets, and one of them you said, like, wow, employee surveys are bullocks, obviously. And
Employee surveys are bollocks.
yeah.
Yes.
So I will always wonder, like, okay, we also have we are a small organization, so we don't pretty much do that because we talk to each other. But, like, how you go about, what is the alternative to actually, let's say, get some sort of feedbacks, like growing and analyzing? What would you say? Surveys, don't do it, right? So,
well, first of all, I'm happy that you researched my Twitter account, because I put a lot of love into that. I call it an ongoing art project. It's a long-term art project.
yeah, you and Pancho had a nice interaction there as well.
Yeah, we had one.
Yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be a little bit about art as well, right? It's supposed to be informative and entertaining, but also we must produce art. I believe in aesthetics and in art and in that we can purvey important messages on Twitter and make society better. And of course, employee engagement surveys or any kind of culture surveys or whatever, or employee satisfaction surveys are anti-democratic bullshit, really. But I think it's obvious why, right? Don't you think it's obvious why that is?
Oh, it's obvious that it's not, at least.
Think for themselves and say, oh boy, it's really obvious. Isn't it obvious why employee surveys are nonsense?
No,
Well,
not to me.
Depends on the survey,
No?
I guess. It depends a bit on the survey. Like, for example,
No, it doesn't. But you can try to defend the stuff.
oh, okay. Well, I don't know what kind of survey we're talking about here. Like, is it about, like, performance, or is it more about, like, your work satisfaction, or like,
Yeah, how satisfied are you at the work and with your team and your boss and whatever. This is not the performance appraisal. Performance appraisal is a crime against humanity anyway. So this kind of the underlings or 360-degree feedback, it's also a crime against humanity. It's all bullshit as well.
No. So I think I'm going to give my try here on you, right? So I think the reason why is it a bit of bullshit is because people are not going to tell the truth. They're going to be afraid of the response from it. So they try to fix this and they make it anonymous as well. But in the end of the day, nobody is really telling the truth because, well, the system is not per se rewarding them for it. It's actually going to only penalize them. That's one reason why I would think that this doesn't work.
Yes, that's a big reason. And there are like 10 of those. Yeah. Another one is if you are in an organization and if you work there, you are assimilated. Yeah. So let's imagine that you have worked at what's a big company, maybe in the Netherlands.
KLM.
KLM, exactly, KLM. I love KLM. I know many people at KLM. I love it, but still, okay. Let's imagine this kind of survey at KLM. Of course, if you work at KLM and have been working there for more than 3 months or 6 months, then you consider almost everything that's going on at KLM normal.
Yeah.
Organizational culture has a strongly absorbing power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And after a few months of working at a place, you consider it normal.
Yeah.
You consider your company normal, and people at Siemens or Bosch consider, or even Volkswagen consider it normal. So they don't know. They cannot judge
right
things, even if they want to.
Really?
Yeah.
Or maybe you cannot judge it really, really that harsh, but you can have really opinions on things that you dislike or things you want to have different
Yes, you can. For example, if I asked you how satisfied are you with democracy in the Netherlands, I got a reply from Rolf.
Yeah.
But can he really judge it? I mean, it's tough. You must have a reference point. And you don't have that.
No.
Usually you don't have that.
Well, but
You would have to live in 2 countries to have a reference point. For example, for a while we had a place here in Germany, in Wiesbaden, and one in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and one in New York City. That we got an idea about what's normal. It was very interesting. It was research all the time, and of course, people referencing in this kind of studies, there are several effects. One is the one that Enrique, you mentioned, that you have no incentive to be truthful, especially when you do these studies the second or the third time, because after the first one that you might have been truthful, you will inevitably have noticed that nothing had any consequence, or that hypocrisy grew, or whatever, or that the consequences were the opposed, or that there was punishment for bad evaluations and bad grades.
Yes and no. But this is also an assumption that that's going to happen, right? It's going to be an assumption that nothing's going to change.
I don't think it's an assumption anymore as well, because I also read somewhere, I studied, and I forgot the name of the weird thing that happens to us, and I went to observe, like, for example, when you start rating persons or book, basically you're not rating them based on them, you are rating them based on you, and I didn't believe it, and basically normally you always do the same rating unless you really dislike them, and I noticed that every book that I rate is 4. Doesn't matter, it's good or bad, it's 4. And it kind of goes along with people, and I noticed as well that when I did in the past was the same. Everybody I rate the same, and I think it doesn't really work.
Yes, and there are more things that in these studies you tend to blame people and not reflect about the system. That is almost inevitable as a problem.
But I've had a case in the past. I've been in a role where I took over a role within an organization, and there was a lot of lack of trust at that point in the organization. So you had to invite people to participate somehow, and using a survey, which was, let's say, anonymous, was like a good start to get people to start opening. And then obviously you had to prove that you had the best intentions to do something with that survey, with the feedback. So what we actually did is we openly took every feedback that was received in the survey and we presented it with everybody. We discussed with the whole organization. It's like, this is what came in, this is what came in, and these are the action points we're going to take upon this and this and this. And then you work it. And then that, at that point, helped start restoring some sort of trust within the organization at that time. So could be, is it ideal? So maybe if you have like a really granular team, really the idea that you also are discussing, Niels, to have like functional integration of granular teams and like really integrated teams, then maybe you don't need this, because then everybody is, if the trust is there, that people can talk about it, then that's the solution. But if it's not there, well,
Yeah, but I would always argue, if you think there are problems in the system, then why don't you just work the system? Why do you just do a study within the system to confirm the system? That's the systemic problem with this kind of engagement study, or everything that you do in the system only serves to perpetuate, like a culture project or bullshit like that, or a new target performance systems. There are all kinds of fashions and fads out there. And 70 or 80% of that are just about dabbling or making improvements within the system, optimizing the system.
Yeah.
And you, I think what you said, Pancho, that most command and control systems, they produce fear, for example. Yes, and distrust. You talked about, we have a lack of trust. My first reaction would always be, if we have a lack of trust and we are not all assholes, then there should be a systemic problem, right? I mean, every organization has an asshole or two. Cannot be the problem. The problem must be that
this guy.
There's a system. We must work the system, and you cannot do that by doing a survey. You should sit together, look into each other's eyes, try to be as honest.
No,
but that's the point, right? That's the ideal state you want to be at. But let's say nobody wants to talk about it. Yeah,
it's the only way. It's not the ideal. We're not talking ideals. It's the only way. That's why a company needs open space beta. It's the only way to create conditions. Or you might have a genius who doesn't need method, like Ricardo Semmler.
Yeah, that's the hero myth versus the organization approach.
Yeah, I prefer method because it's more reliable than a genius or
Correct.
a superhuman.
I have another.
No, but wait,
question.
sorry. But before there, I also now on you, Punch. Like, how do you actually know that your survey built trust? Because for me, like, how do you draw that connection? Because for me, it's like you made a survey, you talk to people, now there is trust. Like, how did
but that was not the trust. The trust was the follow up on the things that we discussed and we agreed that we're going to do with the feedback from the survey. So the trust was we created let's say this case where people were set out their meaning. They used this channel. So for me, that was just like one channel that you use. Then we openly discussed it. Like there was all kinds of feedback there, all kinds of shit feedback, good feedback. We put it all. We had like 2 hours discussions with everybody on it. People could talk. And we said, okay, what are the actions that we want to take upon this? And it was like, okay, this, and this, and this. And we told them, okay, now we're going to work. So the trust is not doing this. The trust is actually following up on all the feedback and actually people seeing some results as a consequence of this.
I think Enrique is right. You fooled yourself, Pancho.
Well, obviously, he's always right. Just let him fool himself by that.
No, I think these workshops, they gave you a good feeling. But there was no trust produced. That's just your way of expressing it. But there was no trust produced. 100% no.
Not in one meeting. No, not in one meeting.
You didn't need the survey. You needed a reason to sit together and talk frankly.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. That's I think a good way of putting it. Right.
See?
Yeah.
So why not do that? And for that, you should do an open space, for example. That's the best way for hundreds of thousands.
It's a silver bullet.
No, I agree with you. Why not just invite them and talk, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And the topic of the open space should be, our system is shit, we must improve it.
Yeah.
And then people can suggest sessions, can have honest conversations for a day or 1 day and a half.
A question
you don't need the survey. The survey is already, the problem is the survey already.
Maybe a question's for Enrique. The question's for Enrique here. How many times have you invited people or organizations of teams that were dysfunctional, let's talk, that openly were there to talk?
No, the first time they don't per se talk, but yeah, I would say the first meeting they don't talk much, but the second one then it starts coming. But the first one is always a bit tricky.
Yeah. So
they want to see what happens, right?
Right.
They want to see if someone is going to get punished for being honest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I use the survey too as a conversation starter, let's say.
It's the worst.
Sure.
No, why? It's obvious. I mean, be critical. I cannot. Of course, I'm not saying I'm right. I can only invite you to think it through.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting this. You may disagree, but here's the thing. The questions in a questionnaire are closing the topics. They already choose. When you articulate the question, you already choose what is important and how it matters. Usually the framing is bad conceptually, so it results in blaming people. There's so many methodological problems with questionnaires and studies like that. And again, I thought what he said is super important. You wanted them as honest as possible, as frank, as blunt as possible conversation in one room, looking into each other's eyes and address some problems.
Yeah.
But then why the hell don't you do that? Don't do a survey first. Because the survey is just about statistics and fraud and very distancing. Why don't you do an open space conference and talk bluntly with the right kind of invitation, the right kind of
you're right.
liberty to frame the topics which people do when they propose sessions. So it's always much better to do a large group open space conference than to do a survey.
What do you?
And it's totally different to people. Totally different.
Yeah. Well, there's multiple reasons.
Not show up to the open space, of course, because in open space you can never force people to participate. That would be coercion. You invite them, so the right people will show up.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I just saved you so much money.
And John,
I sometimes say that to my clients. If you follow my advice, I save you so much money.
Yeah, we say the same, but they don't, so they spend more money. So that's
some, but the time It will come.
What kind of companies actually do contact you about these kinds of behavioral change or organizational change? Is it always companies that are in deep trouble, or is it also companies that are actually flourishing and super successful, but still they seek to further improve, and they say like, okay, let's see this working, this system. If it's anything, let's see if we can be a beta company, and if that further improves our standing in the market or our performance or however you want to call it. What's the type of customers that are seeking your advice?
I have worked with KLM and with Volkswagen and with DM, a company that I consider excellent. So I have all kinds of clients, public sector, not-for-profit, or commercial companies, industries, banks, whatever. Because, I mean, the problem that all these organizations have is their command and control models, except DM. There are few organizations that already have overcome command and control. The Semcos of this world, the Toyotas of this world. Yeah. But all others are still stuck in command and control, even public administration, or very much public administration. Yeah. So all these organizations, and here's the framing question. I believe that all these organizations want to overcome command and control. I believe that all executives, all managers want to overcome command and control. Everybody wants beta. That is a very important meme or a very important belief. Every human being in the world wants democracy. Every human being in the world wants beta. There's some assholes out there, but they are not relevant, and there are very few assholes.
Unless they're in managerial positions, right?
But all others want to understand how beta organizations work. It's very hard to understand it from what Ricardo Semmler or Herb Kelleher of Southwest Airlines or Götz Werner from DM Drogeriemarkt, the German company, or Taichi Ono of Toyota. He wrote brilliant books, but it's very hard sometimes to get the message. So the challenge is to plant the seed of doubt about command and control in people's hearts and educate people and help them learn and understand and gain insight of true agility, true decentralization, true beta.
I share the same feeling.
That lies ahead of us. A renaissance of organizational thinking. And the good message is this thinking, it was born 100 years ago. Mary Follett is so far the oldest author of beta literature that we have found, and she died and she passed away in 1933. Kurt Lewin, German psychologist, social psychologist, so to say, he was also a pioneer of that. There are so many pioneers in history, and also pioneer organization. There was a British coal mine in the 1950s already working as a beta organization. Yeah? So the cases have been there, the thinking and the philosophy has been there. We must finally put this together. And also, I think a point that was really missing is still missing in for most people, it's still missing, is the transformation approach. So you need the right approach. To get to agility, you need an agile fit transformation approach. And that none of the scaling approaches is in any way a decent organizational development approach. They are all based on coercion, ultimately. So that's... except open space agility and open space beta. So I invite everybody to really look at it critically. Don't believe in anything that's said, but
so like
it's the future.
As far as I could understand from the reads that I did, let's say most of this command and control got quite big with the Taylorism, right? Industrial part with the industrial revolution things, and made me think like, how did companies did different before then? It was also command and control. It was more like beta, and command and control took over. Like, do you have insights on how companies behave in the 18th, 17th centuries?
Yes, there are two answers to it. Why was management and social technology as we know it, command and control, why was it invented? And one of the answers, by the way, Frederick Taylor is not really to blame. I think he had the right ideology, a more beta or more Toyota-directed thinking. The problem is that then his acolytes, they messed it all up. Fucked it all up, so to speak. But so we are not. I don't like the idea of blaming Frederick Taylor for what has happened with his creation. What we know is also that pre-Taylor, most organizations relied on, let's say, military philosophy. The large industrial organizations were very much about personal command and obeying, and let's say brute oppression. And of course, Frederick Taylor's the Taylor system or scientific management created ways of creating more rational ways of organizing, structuring. Also, the functional division that was invented at the time, for example, to separate purchasing and logistics from production, and production planning from production, and separating everything and create sales departments. That all goes back to scientific management or Taylorism. And before that, it was all just personal things. So in a way, organizations from Taylor on could professionalize their management and create the processes and the rules to, let's say, so that all organizations would somehow look the same, including their budgeting systems, their targeting and incentive structures. And until now, that has had
it succeeded very well.
Yeah, but before that, there was really brute oppression. In smaller organizations, not so much. Maybe in the artisan workshop, of course, there was a different spirit of working together collaboratively. But in industrial organizations, until then, there was a lot of personal gusto. I want to behave like an asshole. I'm the owner. I will behave like an asshole.
So it's also basically command and control, just like without the whole.
But unprofessional, unscientific. So my opinion, I would just directly command you. I would not look at the right way to do the job, and that's the benefit, the good things that Taylorism brought. The rigor of analyzing how could the work be done? What is the one best way? That's not it wasn't a good ideology, but it was their ideology. What is the one best way? Let's make that a standard and prescribe everyone to do it in the one best way. That it was progress. It was a good idea.
Yeah.
However, the idea to divide between thinkers and doers,
that was bad.
That has proved toxic.
Yeah,
especially in an age of complexity that we entered in the 1970s.
Yeah, it's also a different domain, right? The more the manufacturing and manual type of work versus services and digital type of work.
Yeah, but now you are promoting the ideology that factory workers deserve command and control. While digital workers are born for a better way of working. Right? Is that really what he wants to say?
Probably not, when you put it like that.
It's not. And that's what the beauty about Toyota is. It's just factory work. It's industrial work. True. Still, there are some very cool things about Toyota. For example, the idea that Toyota created, it's mass production, industrial mass production. So at a certain point at Toyota, they also had the idea, okay, the work is boring. Naturally, it is pretty boring to put together cars, right?
Unless you like Legos.
So what about we make the work more exciting by, on the same production line, every car must be as different as possible from the previous one. We must mix them. Instead of producing 100 times the same car, we mix them on the production line. Today, Toyota has an algorithm that mixes the cars on the production line so that the work is a little less boring.
Okay.
Yeah. You got it?
Yeah.
That's a
cool. Of course, for that, you have to master the problem of equipment change. How is it called in English? If you produce a different car, one after the other, then you must reduce your setup time to 0 to make that happen. Make that as efficient as if you produced 100 same car.
Yeah, exactly.
So they had to master those problems to get there.
Well, it's quite an interesting solution.
The same as Scrum. Scrum does the same thing, I think. It tries to make something very boring, coding, software development, a little less boring.
That's not very boring. I think
awesome.
But I do have a question on morality, and maybe you can help me here. So currently I work at a client, and these people have their yearly or annual reviews coming up.
Oh boy, that's a crime against humanity.
Yeah, exactly.
So that, it's already a better world. We made the world a better place.
Yeah, but then so they're going to ask me to fill out this form about their performance, and if I'm going to be very positive about them, they might earn a raise. But should I just refuse to actually fill in these forms because it's a crime against humanity, or should I just give them a super positive review and give them the most amount of raise that they can get? What should I do?
Do you want to work in the system, or do you want to work the system?
I want to work the system.
Okay, then you cannot just give a super good evaluation. That would be in the system. Silent protest. Yeah. You think you outsmarted the system, but you played well within the rules. Okay. Working the system would be to walk up with to those people owning the forms or owning that software or whatever it is, and to tell them, I will never do this, and you can cut my bonus or whatever. You can try to punish me, but I will never do this shit.
Okay.
With those words, you have to say
that I am the problem or that other people are the problem. If you want to have an honest conversation, I'm always open for that.
Yeah.
But I will never do this kind of evaluation. Not with. I will not allow it to be done with me if I can, stand in the way. And I will never do this with my staff. I know people. Okay. I know some people who did this year after year in corporations. Always went back to HR, telling them, I will never do this with my people. That is what I call courage and integrity.
So how did they do it then? If they didn't do these evaluations, what kind of alternatives did they implement?
Yeah. What kind of question is that? That is like asking, well, what do they do if they don't use the guillotine or the electric chair?
An injection?
Yeah, but I'm talking about
shooting squad
punishment at all. Remove something evil that already makes the world a better place. Yeah. The point is, here's the point. I mean, more serious. I try to tell you things how I would frame them also with points here, okay? But the rational thing is this. And this is science. Here it comes. Systems theory.
We're recording.
In organizations, individual performance does not exist.
Yeah, I agree.
Period. That's it. Yeah. There is no such thing as individual performance at Volkswagen, at Toyota, or in your company, or anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. Even if I want to publish a book, one might say, "Oh, you are the writer, Niels. You write beautiful books." This is not one of my books, but I could write it. Yeah, of course, publishing a book also involves designers and a publisher and a sales people and Amazon. So there is no such thing as individual performance. Yeah. Okay. If that is true, then the only thing that performs is
the team.
Constellations of people.
Yeah.
You might call them teams.
Yeah.
Like a Scrum team. They can produce performance together. Yeah. They might still depend on accountants, bookkeepers. Yeah. But they can perform something like create a minimum viable product by itself, that kind of stuff. So performance is collective. And here's the thing. We are all imperfect. It's very easy to criticize each other and say, Pancha is like this and that, and Niels is like this and that, Rolf has that error, and we are all stupid. The beauty of teams is that teams can be perfect in spite of individuals not being perfect. So here's the thing. We should only, and this is contemporary democratic philosophy of performance systems, is we only evaluate teams, or even better, they only evaluate themselves.
Yeah.
We will provide measurement of team performance, like every team in a beta organization should have a profit and loss statement, have an income. Mm-hmm. It produces cost and might have a margin or something like that. So we will measure team performance, but never will we measure or evaluate individuals, because fuck that shit.
Yeah, I agree.
So
and that is also why individual bonuses, individual targets, OKRs are also criminal practice.
So let's say you incentivize.
You live in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah,
I do.
All these tools should be judged in The Hague, at the city of The Hague, at the
Court of International
Crimes Against Humanity. Individual incentives.
So let's say you have team incentives, and I'm going more into the discussion of
No. Team performance measurement is not the same as incentivizing. Incentivizing is we always drive selfish and no.
All right. So you already answered the question I wanted to ask. So I don't know if
but ask it anyway, because the listeners don't know what you have.
All right. So I was going. So you're thinking about thinking on your thoughts on functional integration. So decentralizing a company into multiplications of different teams who are self-organized, who have their own goals, their own targets, they even maybe have some sales people in it, so they like the whole, well, I don't know if I want to call it vertical, but they own everything within it. Mm-hmm. So you have like multiplication.
They need to do the work.
Sorry? Everything they need to do the work, exactly. So you have you have like a lot of these teams that would promote some sort of it gives people purpose, pride, being part of this team, they're performing good. Oh, great. And how it will stimulate competition within the organization between these teams. And if people are, let's say, rewarded based on the performance of their own team, how would they prioritize the importance of the team? Would they prioritize the importance of the team or the importance of the organization?
Yeah, that's why. And here, this is also everything we're discussing is part of what I call the BetaCodex, the BetaCodex way of organizing, and the Beta principles. And in these principles, we have this distinction between alpha principle, beta principles. The alpha principle is to incentivize, and to a beta principle of pay or compensating people is to give them a share in success.
But it's share of success of the whole organization, not on a team level, right? On the whole organization.
That's the best way. That's exactly what I wanted to hint at.
Yeah.
Of course, you can have a team have a share in their team profit or team result, but it is much, much, much better to give everybody a share in the overall organization's result. Why? There are many reasons, and you gave one. One is that you don't want teams to compete badly among each other. But another one is, let's assume we run a bank or a retail organization, and we want to create new stores or branches. Arguably, those branches or new stores would not be that profitable for a while until you get them running, right? Yeah. So if you give people a share in the individual branches or teams' profits, then there is no incentive to create new branches or stores.
Yeah.
And to go there, because a new branch or store will not be as profitable for a while like the mature branch or store. So it is foolish, I think, to design a system in which people are incentivized not to build the new business of tomorrow. Yeah. The best way to give people a share in the profits is to have them give them a share of the whole.
Yes.
The whole company.
Yeah.
That's the best way. It's also the simplest way, because then the system is very simple. You measure that for the whole organization divided by heads. That's the best variable pay system is. You can give 10 million euros away, you divide it by the number of heads, and everybody gets the same regardless of base salary. That's the best way. Why? Because the base salary is also already a function of your market value, and that can be very different.
Yeah.
Depending on age and qualification and how many languages you speak and how much experience in the company you have, how much seniority, what kind of, whatever kind of market whatever defines your market value. Yeah. So in the base salary, you also already recognize the individuality of the person and the individual market value and history and so on, what the person is.
Yeah.
So why do you have to discriminate like that in the profit sharing scheme? I see no reason for it. If you already individualize the base salary, then why should you individualize the profit share? Yep. To me, and this is also a little bit of an opinion, not just theory, but I'm trying to give you the rationale for this. The best pay system is pay the person on the base salary level, give everybody a fair individual salary, and help them get their mind off the money so that they can live decently. And then have a profit profit sharing system that is the same for everyone. You can do that by giving everybody shares or by giving out profit share, or as Handelsbanken, one of my preferred companies in the world, does it. They pay an annual amount, same for everyone, into a foundation, Octagonal Foundation. Mm-hmm. And once the person turns age 60, you can access that money as a retirement money, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a good answer?
Yeah, for me it is.
Pancho?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's where I was going, and I've had experiences in the past with this actually working really, really badly, and companies or different departments within an organization, let's say different teams, who were actually competing for resources and not really willing to help. But the problems were basically the incentives that each of them had individually, and then it kind of all breaks down. It promotes greed in essence a bit. It's like,
The best pay system, I believe, and I've seen many pay systems of all these clients over the years. I think the best pay systems is the simplest, where you don't need anybody to administer it.
Yeah.
You have base salaries, and the rest is almost automated.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to judge people's characters. You don't try to control anybody. You don't try to create rules. It's better to fire a person than to say, "Oh no, we will take her bonus away to punish her a little." What's more honest?
Well, yeah, firing, of
The
course.
person is terrible. We would take a bonus away at the year end. I don't like her. Take the bonus away instead of saying, "It's better for us to go separate ways."
But a lot of times when people get fired, they actually get a bonus, right?
Yeah.
Also stipulates it.
That's a different story you're telling.
Yeah, we had this problem.
So the
yes.
best punishment might be to just, keep them on.
In a command and control organization.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we've been talking for quite some time. I don't know, Panche and Nick, do you have any more questions for Niels? Or Niels, do you have some more questions for us, maybe?
We have a lot, but yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, because...
I think so. I'm going to do my last one here.
Sure.
Because that triggered me, and if Pancho has one or you, please my guess. But
yeah.
it's a bit of like playing with words, I guess. But like also another tweet that I got a bit triggered by yours was, wow, if you cannot talk about leadership without using the term leader, then you clearly have not understood the phenomenon of leadership yet. And I boggled my head with this, right? Like, what does he means with this? It's like, so maybe can you explain?
Like Montessori, the Montessori method of pedagogy. Have you heard of Maria Montessori?
No.
Montessori schools.
Yep.
In Montessori pedagogy, it's you assume that you don't need the teacher to teach the pupils everything. The pupils can explain it, and they can self-explain if they have a question. And you just had a question. The first step is to self-explain and then solve it among yourselves.
So that's what you're suggesting us to do.
Yes.
Well, I'm up to take it.
Conclusion did you come? The tweet says if to explain the concept of leadership, you need to use the word leader or to lead, then you still haven't understood the phenomenon even remotely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that part I get it, but then I'm like, so I was just contemplating, right? And I was like, okay, so basically there is leadership, and there is at least the concept of leader that I learn in schools, right?
And that's the opposite of leadership. To give you a hint. The concept of leaders is the opposite of the concept of leaderships. Let's say the term leader is an oxymoron by itself. Or if you want to have leadership, you cannot have leaders.
Yeah, okay, that part that I understood clear? As well. Yeah, that part I get it, but then I'm like, so how does this come to be? That's why I get curious. Like, why do we all misunderstand this so much?
The devil inside.
Okay.
There he is.
There are famous authors, especially in the United States, but also in the Netherlands probably, who cannot publish a book without the term leader on it. Leaders vomit first, or something like that, or they lead to strive, or the leader is great, or greater leaders.
Lead last, I think.
Superhero leadership. All that is bullshit.
Fair enough.
So if, and this is something that Mary Follett, I can only recommend her work about it.
Yeah,
again, she died in 1933. She was born in 1868. And at the time, she already criticized this notion that leadership was something that leaders do. So I'm not the first of saying this. But it is in complexity and in democratic societies, which arguably we have.
Yeah.
Even if we accept Rolf's critique of Dutch politics, it doesn't make much sense to define leadership as something that leaders do. Of course, leadership is something that happens in the space between people. That's the only democratic way of thinking about leadership.
Yeah.
It is something that happens in our dynamic between us. Mary Follett articulated that beautifully. That's why systems theory or the concepts of cybernetics and so on are so important, because they help us explain leadership as a social or a group phenomenon that happens in group dynamics, and that is an emergent effect of social groups.
Yeah.
Like we always have leadership. You can, like, if we land on a deserted island with 10 people, and one person turns out to be our leader, and she or he has an accident, dies instantly.
Right.
Does that mean we won't have leadership? No. New patterns of leadership will emerge among us. So you cannot, in a social group, you cannot kill leadership. And it might be terrible, or it might be good. Yeah. But certainly you don't need heroes to explain leadership. And all this heroism that is embedded in the term leader is very close to fascism.
Yeah.
Very close to fascism. Very, very close.
Egocentric,
It might be indistinguishable from fascism. The notion that you need heroes and leaders in an organization is profoundly anti-democratic. It is part of the devil inside. And take a look at the book covers. When it says leaders or to lead, you know it comes from the dark side. And that the thinking comes from the dark side. Like execution, implementing.
Okay.
Well,
fair enough.
good. We know how to do exorcism on that.
Okay.
All right.
Well, on that note, I think.
Well, I'm not sure. Do you feel like that was an attractive proposition, Henrike?
Yeah, for me very much. That's the thing. Like like I'm gonna give my closing notes, so Rolf, you don't have to tell me, Henrique, what is your tip for the day. But so for me, this conversation was extremely insightful because a lot of those things that we spoke here, they were in my head. I just could not per se, let's say, name it or put a direction to it, or so that's why when I saw your tweets, they bugged me because I'm like, wow, I'm searching for answers, but I don't understand it yet. And so it is definitely insightful because when I look at those, I think there is also this book called Dare to Lead, and I'm like, what does this actually freaking means? And then
the author was ill-advised. Maybe it was just the publisher that gave.
Maybe it can be, but I'm just talking about the title, right? I'm not going to discuss on the content, but it's I felt wrong, and then it's just like why, and I could never pinpoint, but now I have more clarity to it. So thanks a lot. I became smarter today after this podcast.
Yeah, or at least more suspicious about command and control. The spirit of command and control that rebirths itself in these books and these titles and these keynotes and these talks on YouTube, right? All the time. Yeah. We hear the propaganda all the time. There are so many preachers of command and control that they look nice.
Yeah.
There was a famous one of the artists from the 1980s I like a lot is Kate Bush.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the singer Kate Bush?
Yeah, for sure.
She once made a great song about dancing with Hitler in her dream. She imagined that Hitler was a beautiful, charming man at a party that she met, and they danced. Mm-hmm. And only afterwards she was told that it's just a dream, right? And only afterwards she was told that it was Hitler. And this is a serious dilemma or paradox of our society. It's hard to distinguish the dark side from the light, the good from the bad, the seduction of pleasantness. It's very prevalent in the speaker circuit and in today's leadership literature. Mm-hmm. So this is a warning or an invitation for everyone to watch critically what's being said in TED Talks and on Twitter or on social media, and the things that are praised, the thinkers that are praised. If we really want the necessary organizational renaissance that we have been talking about in this hour or so, then we must get rid of horrific concepts such as leaders leading, implementing, executing, and command and control thinking.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this.
Yeah, well, thank you for being here. I think it was an excellent episode from my end. I enjoyed very much your insights. I must admit I haven't heard of like the command and control and the working the system. But yeah, for sure I'm going to look deeper into it because of a lot of the things that you say definitely resound with me on a deeper level. At a lot of clients, I see a lot of these, upper management people making decisions that just blow my mind. It's like, team compositions get dictated from, top down, all this kind of stuff. It just, it's amazing.
So we created a website, by the way, just for our listeners. We created a website, workthesystem.eu.
.eu. Okay.
Yeah,
For everyone
I'll
who's
put it
interested.
Yeah,
show notes,
we'll include that in the description, and we'll also include your website. That's nielspflaeging.com. And should we also include the BetaCodex.org site?
Please do so. Yes,
Yeah.
very importantly. That's the movement.
Yeah,
The open source movement for
for
everyone.
sure. We'll do that. All right. So, Panchi, do you have any closing words, or shall I? Close it down?
Well, Niels, thanks. I became richer by just having this discussion with you. I also got to know you a bit better, not just by your tweets. And I can definitely say there is like a lot more nuance to the way you come across in a one-on-one conversation than just pure tweets. But that's the art side of Niels, so it's also appreciated. Well, thanks a lot. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm getting more excited about actually diving into this.
And hope we meet again or talk again, different setting, and let's see.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right.
Yes.
Well, that leaves me only to thank the listener. If you have any questions, remarks, or anything else you want to share with us or with Niels, then please send us a message on anchor.fm. There's a big message button there. You can also send us an email at podcast@4scouts.nl or contact with us at Twitter. That's @4scouts. And Niels, your Twitter handle is @Niels Pflaeging, I assume? Yeah.
Yes.
We'll
We
include that
also
for
have a
good
Twitter
measure.
handle, Work the System.
Work the system. All right. So we can pick up the conversation online if you guys want. For now, thank you very much. Niels, thanks again, and hopefully see you in a future episode. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows, with your host, Rolf Surd. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit 4scouts.nl and on Twitter @4scouts. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows.